go back in time together just for a moment. Picture, if you can, the face of your first great love. Did you maybe picture your mother? Because no matter how our relationship with her ever was, no matter how complicated things ever became, she was the first one we loved before we could even articulate it. Before we were born, we knew her voice, her movements, her heartbeat, her scent. Hers were likely the first arms to really hold us, and she was the one who provided us with our needs for nourishment, warmth, and comfort. In fact, a very young baby does not even recognize that it is a being separate from its mother. It considers itself an extension of her. That's why if a baby loses sight of its mother, its first reaction is to cry. Even if another familiar adult is nearby, a baby who cannot see or hear its mother can quickly become inconsolable. Nothing can replace a mother's love. And yet, in spite of the total dependence a baby initially has upon her, the mother's job is to prepare the child to live independently of her. My own grandmother used to say wistfully, "Every step they take is a step away from you." And long after the children have stepped away from the threshold of the family home, the mother will continue to pray for their protection, imploring God to look after the ones she loves with all her heart. I hear echoes of that fiercely protective love in the words of Jesus, the words recorded in the 17th chapter of John's Gospel. As he prepared to be separated from the disciples that he had loved so deeply, he prayed, "Holy Father, watch over them in your name." He prayed that God would keep them safe. How many mothers have prayed those very words for their own children? In many ways, Jesus had mothered his disciples, providing them with spiritual sustenance, but also feeding them when their bodies hungered. Just that evening, before retreating to the garden to pray, he had offered them a cup of wine, symbolic of the blood that he was prepared to pour out for their salvation, sacrificing his own body for them. This brings to mind one nearly forgotten symbol of Christianity, the pelican, which can be found represented in the artwork of some of the most ancient churches around the world. Why the pelican? Because according to legend, a mother pelican will use her beak to gouge her own chest in order to feed her babies her blood if no other food is available. She represents the sacrificial love of a mother. You can see how that connects to Jesus. Now, besides serving them a meal that night, Jesus also performed another ritual commonly associated with mothering. He washed their feet. I imagine his wood-roughened hands becoming as tender as those of any mother as he ministered to the ones he so dearly loved. His last evening with them was spent doing some of the most nurturing things a mother ever does for her child, feeding and washing. Then in the garden, he prayed that God would continue to nurture them spiritually, saying, "Make them holy in the truth. Your word is truth." Like the wisest of mothers, Jesus was dedicating his disciples to God, acknowledging that to God they truly belonged. He even said, "They were yours and you gave them to me." He said, "I'm praying for them, for those you gave me, because they are yours." That is the kind of love a mother has for her children, knowing that they truly belong to God, but loving them as though they were hers alone. I gained a deeper appreciation for that kind of love maybe about 16 years ago when I met a woman in a pick-your-own blueberry patch in San Joaquin County. I was picking blueberries with my, at the time, very young daughter, and near us was this woman who clearly had her hands full. She was wearing a newborn baby in a wrap, and by her side was a girl of no more than 7 who herself was wearing a toddler in a baby carrier on her back. I was impressed, so I struck up a conversation with this brave woman who told me about this family of hers. The oldest girl was hers by adoption, and she was in the process of adopting the toddler. As for the tiny baby, she was its foster mother, not meant to keep it. "How can you stand it," I asked her, "to attach to this tiny baby, to fall in love with it, knowing you will be separated from it forever?" "That's my job," she told me. "My job is to attach to it so that it can learn to love other people in its life. And if I do my job correctly, it will break my heart. but this child will have a chance to live a healthy life. I didn't realize it at the time. I think we rarely do. But I'm pretty sure I'd had an encounter with Jesus that day in the blueberry patch. In that foster mom's words, I heard echoes of Jesus' own words, words he directed to God as he prayed. When I was with them, I watched over them in your name, the name you gave me, and I kept them safe so that they could share completely in my joy. Like the loving foster mother, Jesus had filled his disciples with love so that they could fill the world with more love and share completely in his joy of being in connection with God, who is the source of all love. Of course, it was breaking Jesus' heart to anticipate the separation, so he did what all loving parents do for their children, what you probably do quite often for your own children. He prayed for them. He prayed for their protection when things got difficult, as he knew they would. He prayed for their unity, knowing that challenges and disagreements could quite easily tear them apart. He prayed they might be faithful to his teachings of how to live out God's will. He prayed essentially like a mother prays for her children. As Jesus prayed that night, the night that would be his last, he did not only pray for his close disciples, the ones he knew by name, he also prayed for the future disciples who would follow in their footsteps, carrying his message to future generations. He prayed maybe the way a grandparent prays, not only for the children they know, but for the successive generations of great-grandchildren they love even before those kids could be born. In this way, Jesus also prayed for us, children of God he could not have pictured in his mind's eye, but whom he knew he loved just the same. Take a moment and let that sink in. Jesus prayed for us, just like our parents and grandparents and even great-grandparents prayed for us. My guess is that Jesus still prays for us. I would invite you to take some time this week to read Jesus' entire prayer. It's the 17th chapter of John's Gospel. And imagine those words being prayed over you, over us, over the world. How does it feel to be loved like that? And how will we respond to being loved like that? Maybe this week we'll take some extra time to pray for each other the way Jesus prayed for us, that we might all be safe, that we might all be one, that we might all follow in the way of love and goodness as God intended. Because as we pray, we add our voices to an ongoing conversation that has the power to shape our hearts and our lives. As we pray, we open our hearts and our minds to hear what God is saying to us in return, perhaps recognizing the ways in which we are being asked to bless this world so desperate for love and unity and kindness. As we lift up our hands in prayer, may we recognize them as the hands of Jesus, hands that prayed and also hands that blessed, for that was the image of Jesus that his disciples would carry with them. The final picture of Jesus just before he ascended to the heavens, 40 days after his resurrection. As his disciples watched, he lifted his hands and blessed them. He is still blessing us, but the lifted hands do not belong to him anymore. They are the hands of those who continue his work in the world, and yes, as I said, they are our hands too. Let us lift them up, offering blessings to each other, that Jesus' love may still be known in the world. And as our hands offer blessing, let our voices offer encouragement, let our arms offer welcome to all children of God, inviting others to add their gifts to this great big God project we have inherited. Let us do this as followers of Jesus, who taught us what God's love looks like. It is the greatest love